Welcome back, everyone, to Backseat Designers Season V, episode The Last One. We're here with a roundtable discussion this week. We're going to be talking about some of the things that we did over the rest of the season. As always, of course, I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, including, but not limited to, Frederick Olsen.
Hello.
And Trolls Planet.
Bonsoir, madame.
I know who you are, madame.
You used to be mademoiselle.
I know you too well.
Yes.
Off to a good start, eh?
The sum total of 20th century Danish culture aside, we are here with a number of other co-hosts who I cannot even work out what kind of order we're supposed to do this in, so I'm just going to go on the order that I have it on my notepad here. Welcome, everybody, to Charlotte Gore. How are you doing, Charlotte?
Oh, hello. I'm in the middle of making a game and very, 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 very stressed out. But yeah, I'm here. I'm definitely 100% here, honest.
That's good.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, this is not going to be the kind of thing that's going to do anything to reduce those stress levels. I have here on my notes that you are the one behind Starefall Games, that you made the delightful Yorkshire Gubbins, and you were also on Season V, Episode 4.
Was I?
You were.
Busy.
I distinctly remember that, yes. There was some juggling of poultry, I believe.
Yes, doves in the air.
I've just blanked it out from my memory, honest. It's just, yeah.
I can understand how it would be.
That whole month is gone. It's just gone.
So a lot's happened.
Being on the show is quite the traumatic event. We do realize that, and apologize.
Oh, thank you. No, I accept your apology. Thanks.
Hey, cheers.
It's only going to get worse. I think I would save up everything that will go wrong, and we'll do the apologies right at the end. Next on my list, I have the one and the only Francisco Gonzalez. How are you doing, Francisco?
I'm also stressed and making a game right now. So there's that.
This is going to be a recurring thing, isn't it?
I think we found our theme here.
I'm in the middle of an existential crisis that Fred cares nothing about.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yes, Francisco's the one behind Grundislav Games. He's currently working on Lamplight City, which is taking away all of his moral and spiritual energy. He's the co-host of the Blue Cup Tools podcast, which is my second favourite podcast about adventure games and gaming and all of that kind of stuff, obviously behind this illustrious podcast. He's also appeared on, well, you've appeared on quite a lot because you used to do voicemails and things like that when we used to play voicemails, but you've been on Season 2, Episode 5, the Season 2 finale, Season 4, Episode 17, Season V, Episode 3, and on Open Crowdsource, Season 1, Episode 1.
Jesus, I need a life. I should leave. Why am I even here?
Remember, I don't care one bit about this, Francisco. Not one
That's
bit.
Fine, the feeling's mutual.
Wait, did we have an episode 17 of a season? How did we have lives back then?
Yeah, Season 4 apparently went at least 17 episodes.
Holy
Season
shit.
4 was pretty good. Season 2, however...
No, we don't talk about Season 2.
We don't. We move straight on to Laine Nooney, Associate Professor of Media Industries at NYU. How are you doing, Laine?
I'm all right, and I'm an assistant professor.
Assistant. Sorry, this is the English in me. This is the English in me. Here it would be associate. Here we go. I'm typing it in. Assistant Professor. How's it
Get
going?
those details right.
I will do. I'm very sorry for misranking you.
At least it wasn't me who fucked up right at the beginning this time. The first time we had Laine on, I made a very stupid joke, and she just put me straight in my place, right away. And I've loved her ever since.
I can't accept unapproved promotions just yet, so...
Oh, it's got to go through the hiring committee first.
It's got to go through the tenure committee, so...
Okay. Well, Laine's written extensively on the history of gaming culture and various things, and particularly about Sierra and Roberta Williams. That's what we discussed last time she was on, which was Season 4, Episode 11, which was one of my favourite ones, because, yeah, you put Trolls in his place, and that was so good.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
What's
madam.
been going on with you since Season 4?
Season 4 wasn't that long ago. I have been working on the book, which is about the history of Sierra from about 1979 to the early mid 2000s. So yeah, I'm working on the chapter that's about when Ken and Roberta arrived to Oakhurst and all the stuff that putting Sierra together there does to that town.
That sounds fantastic. We should. Do you know Sean?
Sean who?
Sean Mills.
Sean Mills. Maybe? I don't think so.
Because he's been doing quite a lot of work on a sort of a more kind of narrative kind of history of Sierra.
Oh, okay.
He's a journalist.
No, I'm not familiar with his work.
No, he's a journalist, but he also moonlights as some sort of co-CEO of some little adventure game development studio. I mean, who cares, really? Oh, it's Infamous Quests.
Did he write that piece about Police Quest for...
Oh, he wrote a series of articles for Adventure Gamer, a 5-part series on the history of Sierra.
Oh, okay.
Probably nothing you didn't know already, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to stump me at this point. I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'll shut up.
No. Go.
Oh no, I was just going to say. I think at this point I'm at about 55 oral histories with ex-employees of the company. I'm planning on getting another, I think, 20 done over the summer, and then hopefully that part of the research will be complete.
Nice.
Cool.
Next up, we have a BSD virgin. We
dear.
have the glorious Liviu Boar, who is the creative director at Gibbous, a Cthulhu adventure. How are you doing, Liviu?
I'm a virgin. Hey guys, it's great to be here with everyone, and it's nice to hear your voices live again after seeing you guys at Adventure X.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That was great. Yeah. And I am extremely honored to be here, and I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of fun. And I think we found the theme already. Everyone's stressed out and working on their games, so and so am I.
You're in that boat too. Well, since you haven't been on, what have you been up to since you were born?
Since I was born. Well, for the first 12 years of my life, nothing special. But then I ran into this game called Day of the Tentacle, which pretty much saved my life and made me want to be an animator and make games at the same time. So here I am.
That's a very sincere and honest answer that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and sadly, there's been a 23-year gap between wanting to make games and starting to make games. But here I am finally. So, better late than never.
But your virginity is still intact.
Yes, absolutely. I've held on to that for 36 years. So
you go, man. You go.
I feel like I've this is my first BSD, but I've established my role here, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Your credentials are safe. And
yes.
One
Your
thing.
virginity is safe.
Yeah, I want one of those 70s type introductions with the Virgin.
Your excitement,
your
excitement, however, we will take from you. We probably should have put in Gareth's note that the company name is Stuck in Attic, which is not a euphemism for anything. They have literally locked themselves in an attic.
Yes, and we have since moved from that attic, but the company name stays.
Right.
Yes, we've moved to a more conventional space, but stuck in conventional office space just doesn't have the same ring to it. So, but we might move back because everything is temporary in this life. So,
well, wait a minute. The acronym would be Psychos, which is
Oh my God. Okay, let me just jot that down. Thanks for that, Space Quest historian.
No problem.
Maybe you should have told me that before I incorporated the firm, but okay, it's...
While paperwork is done in the background, we welcome another virgin to the BSD crew. Lost Train Dude, Christopher Sacchi, who's an independent game developer from Italy. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you? I'm fine. I'm pretty excited to be here, and I'm sitting close to Liviu, so the two virgins are sitting close to each other.
Did it just get
You
warm?
might be able to help each other out then.
Well, I mean, you gotta stick together in your quest for unending celibacy.
Yeah, this is a spin-off episode from Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, I was just thinking, is the title of this episode going to be Backseat Designers Goes Looking for Love in Several Wrong Places?
Leisure Suit Liviu.
Oh, God.
God.
I am leaving this scar right now.
I would like to apologize on behalf of my friend.
Let's not make that game. We'll end up with articles in the New York Times. Now, Christopher has. Were you the winner of the Adventure X quiz?
Yeah. Along with Mr. Richard Cobbett.
Indeed.
Who? We haven't introduced you yet, Richard. Shut up. So, I will not. Excellent. So, So, again, what have you been up to since you've been born, Christopher?
Well, more or less, I started making small games 7 years ago, more or less, and yeah, up to now, I just try to go one step at a time and growing more and more. So I ended up last month in a conference in which I had to give a talk about point-and-click adventure games and specifically puzzles, which was something completely new for me, and it went fine. People was interested. And yeah, it was fine. Yeah,
which is good because it sounds like I had to give a talk. So there was a gun to my head, and I just got on stage. A notch in my belt was that I was actually mentioned during that presentation. I came up with
yes, you were.
I came up with a new phrase that I desperately want to have adopted by the adventure game community, called the Stairway to Nowhere. So please let us know what that is.
Basically, is a dialogue tree where you have to choose each and every option without any kind of, and let's say you can't have any. My English is getting very bad all of a sudden.
Absolutely no problem. I find myself in that state every single time we do an episode. So no worries.
Perfect. No, basically, okay, you have a dialogue tree in which you have to choose every single dialogue and nothing happens no matter what. So there is no solution to that, but you still have to choose every option in the dialogue.
Yes. Inspired by Bear With Me.
Yeah, exactly. And you also mentioned the one in Monkey Island 2.
Oh, right.
Where Herman Tuthrot is there. Yeah, basically that's a little bit more interesting in a way because it actually is funny in a way because you spend a lot of time with him and okay, that's it. Go come on, fuck you. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you for making me feel very special by putting me in your presentation.
That was a great presentation, if I may interject. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll put the YouTube link of that up onto the blog post when all is said and done with the recording of this episode. So that should be great. Moving on now to somebody who has been on the show before, Katie Hallahan, co-founder, PR director at Phoenix Online Studios. How are you doing, Katie?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Good. Last time, your company, Phoenix Online Studios, you've done games like Jane Jensen's Mobius, the Gabriel Knight remake, and last time you were on, I think we were a little bit harsh to you, but you were on our State of the Industry third episode, and we should probably apologise yet again, and we'll apologise again once this episode's done.
All right, I'll be waiting to hear how that one compares.
How things have been going with you since you were last on?
Good. I'm not quite as stressed as some people seem to be at the moment. Planning some publishing stuff and very early pre-production maybe on some development, so not quite as in the weeds.
Excellent. Well, now, as he's already butted in and didn't wait for his turn, here is the one and the only Sticky Ricky, Richard Cobbett. How you doing? How you doing, Richard?
I'm doing good.
The Adventure X joke that just won't die.
As much as he wants it to. So
we established that the longer form was Stitchered Richard.
Keep talking. I'm just making my kill list for this year's Adventure X. I don't want to scare you, but you have a little star next to your name.
Oh dear. That sounds frightfully awkward.
Oh, so you're planning to take the mantle away from Grundislav as the serial killer of this podcast?
I know that quite a
How
lot.
am I the serial killer? You asked me to blow you up.
Oh wait, we don't talk about that. That's right.
Fuck you.
Yes. Fuck me indeed.
The phrase "friend of the show" is used far too often on podcasts, but I think Richard definitely is a friend of the show. He's been on season 4, episode 7. He was on Open Crowdsource season 2, episode 7. I've got down here, I've described you as a freelance game developer and journalist, a sort of a writer. Is that a fair description of what you do?
I'd say so. I write games because I have no useful skills. And at the moment, I'm basically trying to gazump Laine's History of Sierra by working on my own. It's an oral history of Leisure Suit Larry. It's only 1 page long. He doesn't get lucky very often.
And also, an oral history of Leisure Suit Larry without protection is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, it really sucks.
There's like a million of those jokes waiting to unfurl, but that one was pretty good. I can't top that one.
We all get checked.
But yeah, pretty much the moment. Write games, write the occasional article, but mostly writing games and very bad puns on Twitter.
I love bad puns. I love your bad puns especially.
Your puns are horrible.
Your star has been removed and replaced with a question mark.
To be honest, that's the best I can hope for.
The rest of us are still dead.
So that is our cast of characters who are here on our round table. Imagine a round table because we're all in different corners of the globe, which I still don't understand quite why modern technology was invented, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't invented for this, but thank God it was. Basically, the theme of this series so far has been the state of the industry. We've been talking about things like how are the interfaces to the industry going to change? Are we going to have parsers? Are we going to have virtual reality? Are we just in a world of remakes, or should we be doing new stuff? Are we in a world where we'll just have single developers like Charlotte or Francisco sort of going at their own thing, or are we going to have small teams, large AAA titles? How is this going to work? Who the hell knows? I thought I would start off by giving some of the people who are now so stressed out with trying to get their own games out. I thought I'd let them not have to go through some kind of existential crisis trying to worry about the state of the industry. I thought actually I'd start with Richard because I was mean to him earlier.
And that's no change there then.
No change there. But I mean, you're somebody who sort of transitioned into the industry from sort of the role of kind of like a critic or a journalist, or sort of an outside observer. How would you say, in your mind, the adventure game scene has changed, perhaps in the past sort of 24 months or so?
I think right now it's kind of a bit difficult because we had the surge of enthusiasm when Kickstarter kind of kicked off, thanks to Tim Schafer and co especially. Then the games came out, and a lot of them obviously weren't quite what people were hoping for. And I think at the moment, the traditional adventure is kind of, I'm not going to use the D word because it's not dead, but I do think that you really have to have something else about it to stand out at the moment. You have to be something like, say, Night in the Woods. You have to be something like, I hate it, but Detroit. You have to have like a selling point beyond, this is a game which you played when you were 13, and wouldn't it be nice to feel like that again? Which I think kind of a lot of the more traditional adventure games have been posting on. And I don't think this really has to be like a huge sea change for a game. Like I say a good example is Dave Gilbert's upcoming Unavowed, which in many ways is a traditional adventure game, but it's also playing with the rules. You don't have the look at command. It's much more focused on the multiple characters and the dialogue there rather than on the puzzles. It kind of has a lot more focus on, the atmosphere and the setting. Whereas I think that quite a few of the ones which we've seen, semi-recently are kind of just kind of going to the old well of, if we make a game like we made it in 1996, then hopefully people will love it like they did those. Not, obviously, for the most part, remembering the big problem with that, which is that for every Monkey Island Day of the Tentacle, there were like 5 Bud Tucker and Double Troubles or Touches or, even, and that's not necessarily a mark of against them, as games, but the games which excited people were the ones which broke the mold and did something new. And I think we've kind of got to that point now where people have realised if you aren't doing that, you're kind of wasting your time.
So you foresee sometime in the future that the ubiquitous description on Steam pages, inspired by the classic adventure games like Monkey Island, will one day disappear into nothingness.
Well, I mean, they're all going to be replaced by the nudity tag, which seems to be taking over Steam at the moment quite excessively. I hope so, because I think that the trouble is that it's great to be inspired by Monkey Island, but you've got to be inspired by the right thing. And as I've said before, the thing with Monkey Island is that when it came out, there were adventure games, but there wasn't an adventure like Monkey Island. Monkey Island broke the rules. It invented the three trial system, which obviously games are still using today. It had real-time elements. When you get to Monkey Island, it's kind of replaced with almost like a mini RPG kind of section. Obviously, there's no combat, there's no hit points, but the nature of the puzzles kind of move much more to environmental stuff rather than social manipulation, which the first part is about. And I think that if people, want to be the next, Monkey Island, people are going to be inspired by that. They have to be inspired to take the same kind of risks and creative leaps to basically take the rough format of the adventure, but then to make it their own. Right. And I think that we're seeing right now that might sound a bit mean-spirited, and it's really not, because just making a traditional adventure is no easy thing. But we've seen in the last few years, that the most successful games are the ones where you stop thinking of it in terms of Monkey Island, you think about it on their own terms. Again, I hate to use Dave again, but the Blackwell Legacy is a great example. People, now look at those games as, I want to play something else like Blackwell. They look at
it was like a license to print money.
exactly. Voice of Dave. They look at something like the walking simulators, and kind of are inspired to kind of make something which takes those for stuff like Everyone's Gone to the Rapture or Amnesia. They look at stuff like Night of the Woods. They look at stuff like Dropsy. And I think if you follow that direction, you kind of focus more on we're going to bring you interesting narrative experiences. The audience has never been bigger for that. If you want to kind of sort of say, well, I wish I'd worked for LucasArts in 1992, I think you're kind of hosed right now, because the audience for that is very niche. It's not very willing to sort of take changes from the norm. And it's only shrinking, I think, as kind of as the response to the otherwise pretty good Thimbleweed Park kind of demonstrates. There isn't a big enough market, even if you're Ron Gilbert, to make a traditional adventure game. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not Ron Gilbert.
All right. We will get back to Thimbleweed Park.
You heard it here first. Yeah. Richard Cobbett, not Ron Gilbert.
I should clarify, if Ron Gilbert is listening, you are Ron Gilbert. I don't want to kind of give you a price.
but
I'm just kind of playing the odds with this one.
But it's an interesting perspective, and one thing I should probably disclaimer is that. By making that little quip, I was in no way trying to diminish the works that Stuck in Attic and Liviu Boar are doing, because I seem to remember that actually being on your Steam page, however, and it is quite a traditional adventure, but you are doing something that I think is very, is setting the game apart from most other traditional adventures coming out, which is that you're, hand animating all the animation, custom animation in 30 frames per second or something like that.
Yeah, that's true, and Richard is absolutely wrong. No.
I get second sound of cracking fingers.
No. Now I have to defend myself. Damn it. No, it's true. It's a matter of it is definitely a matter of putting what you really want to do first, and not necessarily what the zeitgeist is in our case. But it's also a matter of looking at an adventure game as a set of tools. Now the thing is that we in contrast with a lot of other adventure game developers, we haven't really let's say paid our dues, maybe, in a way, as in we haven't done any kind of freeware games. We basically jumped directly into a commercial product, head first, and of course, you as a developer, I think as a first-time developer, you feel a lot more confident when you're working on a framework that's been tried, what is that expression? Tried and proven? No, tried and tested. Yeah, because tried and proven kind of means the same thing. Yes. So basically, it wasn't just our love for classic point-and-click adventures, but it was also a way of saying, "Hey, look, we are fully admitting this is our first game. There might be a lot of missteps here and there. There might be a lot of fumbling." But we are very happy that there have been all these people that are a lot smarter and more talented than us that have refined this genre like to an almost I don't know. It's hard to go any further. As Richard was saying, I actually agree with him. It's super hard to go any further in the classic point-and-click adventure formula. You really need to step sideways and look at it creatively. But we felt that we were biting at so many things at the same time. Biting out of so many different aspects that were intimidating and maybe felt even a little bit overwhelming for us. That we felt that having a strong classical foundation was the way to go, because basically what we wanted to do was not only showcase our love for visual art and for animation, but also tell a story. And it was incidentally, it's sort of a story that is feels very classically escapist. I don't know if that's an actual term, but really it was just like in my head, like a perfect marriage of technique to what we were trying to not technique, but to form genre to what we were trying to do. So that's the internal motivation for going absolutely classic point and click adventure.
I just want to jump in very quickly. What else was it for? Not to backtrack on it, but I think you definitely have a difference between we want to make this game because it's a passion project, and we want to make this game to be the next LucasArts or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think there's a very important distinction there. If people want to make a classic adventure because they love classic adventure, more power to them. I love those games. I'm certainly happy to kind of sort of sit through and play another one. I think for me, it is just the sort of distinction between, are you making basically an old school game, or are you sort of taking that next step? I think that commercially, you kind of have to do the second one. However, obviously for personal satisfaction and for the audience, which loves the old games, great. If you've got a story to tell, if you love the puzzles of the classic, there's actually nothing wrong with doing that. I was speaking sort of specifically in terms of if you want to make it a big commercial thing.
Okay. Oh yeah, sure.
Which obviously has to be kind of counted as well by the fact that right now the basic rule for getting people to pay attention to your game is to have previously done a popular game. So as far as I'm concerned, if given how screwed much of the industry is with how much people are buying at the moment, like the trouble with Steam, you may as well make a passion project, because you have just as much chance of making it big with that as like betting the farm on something big. It is just that sort of sense of moving forwards. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir.
No problem. No, actually, yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when you were talking about those kind of differences, my first thought was, well, Charlotte hasn't gone down that route, and then a couple of seconds later, Charlotte writes in the chat, I was going to say that, haha. And so, Charlotte, I was going to ask you, because you've obviously gone a slightly different route with these kind of bite-sized episodes of what is, quite frankly, the best named game in the world, Yorkshire Gubbins. Even my wife, who just played computer games, that's just the best name for anything ever.
I agree.
You've kind of gone down a different route, because Liviu was sort of saying that he didn't feel like the company had sort of paid their dues, in inverted commas. I think we kind of got what he meant there. But you've kind of tried to pay your dues by sort of learning how to do this in bite-sized commercial chunks. So you've kind of paying your dues and going commercial. I wondered if you could speak a little bit about that.
No. I don't know. God, pay my dues. What dues? No, I mean, no. Okay, so what Richard was saying there about you can't do old school and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm quite proud of the fact that even though I've got the most kind of retro interface, I've got the proper classic 9 verbs thing. But he doesn't mention the word LucasArts anywhere on my Steam page, and it's like that's not the thing that I'm doing at all. The thing that I'm doing is all about the fact that it's Yorkshire. It's the personal stuff. It's the fact that these are really. It's all about just that personal voice. People have maybe a retro game, but no one even, no one's made a game like this that's like that before. And it's not so much paying dues as I guess I am just kind of, and I don't even think of it as like this is me learning the craft anymore either. It's just like this is the specific version of the thing that I actually want to make, and the actual interface of the game, like what the user interface looks like or anything like that, is pretty much secondary to basically the characters and the jokes and the stories. That's all I really care about. And I kind of think that's all my players care about. They don't really, they probably couldn't give a monkey's what the actual interface is. They kind of play it despite that rather than because of it. I'm not going after a classic adventure audience or anything like that. I'm literally going after people who just think the idea of a game called Yorkshire Gubbins is funny, who kind of think the trailer's funny. So at the moment I'm doing Adventure Jam and I'm basically making a musical, and because so it's going to have.
I saw one of your videos on Twitter. It was, let's call it interesting. I think it is interesting because it's not something that's been done before. Not to my recollection.
Dominic Pamplemouth jumping in quickly before the comments.
Maybe I don't know if that counts as a sufficient step forward, and I don't really even think about it that way. It's just like, from my point of view, I look at the kind of people who like Yorkshire Gubbins, and I'm just kind of just giving them more of what they want. And I think song and dance numbers is what they want. I've got no reason for believing this whatsoever. It's purely just made up off the top of my head. I don't know.
Well, on that note, I would like to travel a few decades back in time to one of the historians in our midst. You can play flashback music here if you desire when you edit this, Garrett. Laine, I kind of want to, because you have been researching a lot of Sierra, not just in terms of the, factual stuff that this is what, this year's Sierra, this and that. You've also looked a lot into, what was the historical, where was history going at this point? How did it affect the development of these games? And I kind of want to hear how you think that ties into the industry today. Is there anything to take away from the vision that Ken Williams and Roberta Williams had in going forward with this idea of story-driven gaming that they pioneered?
Oh, geez. Probably not.
This is typical Frederick stuff. He just asks the broadest question imaginable.
I think, I don't even like asking questions. I just like going, what you talk about is highly interesting. So
just do anything.
Tell me what you think, Frederick, and then I'll play off of that.
Well, I am usually in the camp that usually gets very, very annoyed with this sense of nostalgia. I really think adventure games need to climb off the back of Space Quest, King's Quest, and Leisure Suit Larry and Monkey Island. It's never going to be the 1990s again. That was like a flash in the pan. That's never going to happen again. But there are so many other ways to tell stories in games. Does it have to be point and click? No, you can take a game like Her Story, which was something I hadn't seen before in terms of UI, but really told a compelling story. So I don't know. I think what I would take away from what Ken and Roberta did would be this, daring to do something different. That spirit of originality that they had. They took a chance in a financial climate that wasn't necessarily friendly towards video gaming.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reasons those games look the way they do had to do with the kind of technical constraints of what they were working in, right? Exactly. And as those technical constraints expand, as you were talking about other ways of doing an adventure game, right? I think about something like Grim Fandango, right? That beautiful game that's like long and often forgotten, that really did something different, I think, with the style of interactions in space. But it's a hard question to answer because, in some ways a company like Sierra was kind of always beholden to the market, and they sort of realized, I think, once these games ceased to sell or became kind of less profitable for all sorts of reasons, they really had to maneuver as well. I mean, I think holding on to the idea of this as a really specified genre, I think for designers is often very limiting, right? And so, yeah, I mean, Her Story is a great example of a game that really tries to, I think, reinvent what it means to like have those kinds of like story-driven interactions without the same premise of like having an inventory, right, or something like that.
Right.
Which is an interesting segue into what Grundislav is doing, because he is actually making a game right now that has no inventory, and
Blasphemy.
which I think, which is interesting because Grundislav, or sorry, I should probably call him by his actual name, Mr. Gonzalez, Senor Gonzalez, indeed.
Just stop it.
All right,
stop it, trolls.
Sorry. Anyway. Sir Piddle, my bottom, if you would kindly expound on what you are doing to sort of circumvent the lust for nostalgia, or because you come from a very classical adventure game background with your first games, what you are doing to sort of break the mold of traditional point and clicks with your game.
I'm really glad that you kept talking, because there was a siren that came by really loud just then, and I thought it would be really weird to just pop in with
It's
a
kind
really
of the
loud
same
siren.
thing, a loud siren in the background, the trolls talking.
Yeah, I'm used to that.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of interesting how like people, when I say that the game has no inventory, like they freak out, but one of the biggest inspirations for the gameplay I'm taking is from the Westwood Blade Runner game, which a lot of people either remember fondly or never played. But that game didn't have an inventory. Like you'd investigate crime scenes and you would pick up items or clues or whatever, but there was no like use item on hotspot type puzzles. Like the gameplay in that game was basically just walk around, investigate, and then you had like your photo analysis and void conf and stuff. So that game actually broke a lot of the traditional adventure game molds, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's. I really hope that they get it running in Scum VM, just as an aside, because I think more people need to play that game.
Oh, I love the Blade Runner game.
Yeah, it was great. But yeah, I mean, my main reason for not having an inventory system was just because, by nature of the fact that it's a detective game, I felt that having like wacky inventory combination puzzles just didn't fit the tone. You know, like if you're a detective and it's more or less presented as a serious detective game where the focus is on the investigations and the interrogations, having to make, I always default to this puzzle, but having to make a fishing rod out of like a stick and some string to fish out something from, you know, a drain or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't have a place. That immediately breaks the immersion and says, I'm in an adventure game, not I'm playing an interesting detective story.
Oh, by the way, there's a missed opportunity there, because you could have gone for the poke a key out through a keyhole onto a newspaper and just seen Richard physically explode.
I love that puzzle. It's so smart. People definitely didn't read it when they were 5 years old in a famous 5 book and still be obsessed with it decades later.
I think a truly missed opportunity is a lever puzzle. But
well, technically, a truly missed puzzle is you drop the player on an island and just don't give them anything fun to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Johnny Castaway. That's the screensaver.
Yeah,
but no, that's very mean. You can click on stuff.
But there's a really great overarching topic going on here, which is there was the historical perspective of how Sierra broke the mold by thinking outside of the box, and maybe they weren't the first to popularize a point-and-click interface, but they tried consistently to reinvent themselves and try new things. And what I loved what Charlotte Gore was saying was that she doesn't really give a shit if people are playing this because they're adventure game fans. It's Charlotte is so much of a passion project person that it awes me every time she says that. So someone else
I don't really have a choice, though, in fairness.
But I'm going to defer back to our ringleader to carry on the conversation, because that was just an observation on my point.
Wow, trolls! Did you just actually concede the floor rather than rambling on for another half an hour?
I did. But in fairness, I got up very early in the morning.
I I did too. I'm already flagging. I'm glad that the others are carrying this for us.
Well, not Daniel Stacey early, but pretty damn early.
No, that was early. When it was pointed out that Francisco's making a game with no inventory, I heard the words sacrilege, and I think they came from Katie. Were you joking?
Can I defend my position real quick?
No, go ahead. Go on.
I think you have.
I'll let you.
I think saying no inventory is kind of the sexier soundbite way of saying it, but like it's not that there's no inventory; it's just that there's no going. Exactly.
I was hoping for an air horn there, Grundy, instead of an explanation, but.
You know what you missed? I will say, when I do say inventory, everyone's like, what? No inventory!
I think you're right.
I've always been annoyed that inventory is not a place where you invent things. I remember by that when I was playing Text Adventures, especially a game called Humbug, where basically your grandfather's an inventor, so you're told that up, right? And so kind of it's saying, press I to go into your adventure. It's like, yes, I get to build some stuff. And then, why are you just telling me what's in my pockets? I don't. Oh.
Well, a piece of cheese and a shoehorn.
To be fair, that has a lot to do with your pronunciation of the word inventory.
Well, you mean correct.
Inventory.
Yeah. Well, anyway, while we're on this topic, Americans, Leisure Suit Larry and Cecil.
Oh, and the what is
aluminium?
Aluminium mallard. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll concede Cecil.
Cecil himself obviously confirmed to everyone in attendance that his name is in fact pronounced Cecil.
And was he a crocodile? No, we're moving on. We're not doing that joke.
No. So anyway, yeah, the inventory thing. So like, you can pick up items, but it's not like there's no open up the bag and have to select through the variety of items and guess which to use. It's like if you find a key and there's a door, the context sensitive cursor will either change to interact and automatically use the key because that's the logical thing to do, or a context sensitive menu will pop up where you can say use key. I actually we were talking a little earlier about the Hero U beta, and I saw that Hero U actually does this as well. So it's a thing you can do.
Ah, damn! I thought I was pioneering because I actually had a guy called Ben S code me up a AGS template that uses context-sensitive menus, and I thought it was really clever. But I've used it for one Adventure Jam game so far, and I've got nothing. Sorry, Gareth was going somewhere. We were just about to let Katie speak.
I was going to, after throwing Katie under the bus, I was then going to say that one of the things that Phoenix Online has obviously done is that they have done things like remakes, which we kind of discussed earlier on in the series, but they've also done original stuff with designers from the 1990s, and then they've also done stuff that is entirely new. So I guess that kind of historical thing that we were talking about with Laine and these sort of innovations or sort of using... maybe using an inventory, maybe not. How have you seen it through Phoenix Online? Of how has it really come across with the way that you've approached sort of putting out these games?
So the reaction to the different types, from remakes to original stuff to a little more classic looking.
Sorry, that was a terrible question. What?
They can try to understand the question.
How has Phoenix kind of approached how has Phoenix incorporated changes in the way that adventure games have been presented over the past, say, 2 decades?
So, especially between the stuff that we've developed and the stuff that we've published, there's a lot of variety, like you're saying, of different graphical styles or user interfaces and so forth. And I think what works best and what people seem to react to the best is just an interface and a style that go well with the story, like if they support it very well. And sometimes that's things that are a little more newer looking or a new type of interface versus something that's older, like The Last Door. People love that game, and it's the graphic style is obviously very old school looking. The game, because it's got a lot of creeping around and shadowy things, so the fact that you're not able to see things very clearly really works well for that. I think is definitely part of why it's done as well. And the interface is very simple. It's also, I think, fairly. You have an inventory, but it's not complicated or anything. So it all really helps support the mood and the atmosphere that the game's going for. It's put another way, maybe it works best when space does not get in the way of your story or your game being played, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So using the interface to kind of enhance what's being told and built into a sort of an overall thing rather than being tacked on.
Exactly, yeah.
So
one of the reasons computer is making noise and overheating because I had something else open. That's a sign of Skype.
I can hear Jeff Goldblum in the background.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's my cat.
Sorry, Katie.
Jeff Goldblum, of course, has also been on the podcast before.
Oh,
I absolutely love that is your cat's name.
Hello, come here, little balls.
Dinosaurs are gonna life will find a way.
Well, what I like what Katie is saying is to keep the adventure games that you're doing fresh. You're looking at more than just the mechanics of the game. It also has to do with how the games are presented. Like you say, I almost called it the Lost Door. It's like, fuck, I can't get out of this room. No, the Last Door has a very distinct art style where, as you say, a lot of things are in shadows. Other than that, it is quite traditional in the actual gameplay style with, inventory. You click on things, you move along, point and click standards. But the presentation of it is paramount in differentiating it from, say, any old Monkey Island knockoff.
Yeah, true. And speaking of knockoffs and presentation and mechanics and by proxy puzzles, we haven't heard a lot. Yeah, riggedy segue. We haven't heard a lot from you on the show yet, Christopher, but you do this thing on your website where you deconstruct games by breaking them down into the individual puzzle components.
Yeah.
What is some of the stuff that you're noting when you're playing through older and newer games? Is there any stuff that you're sick of seeing, or do you see any potential for making more interesting puzzles?
One of the reasons why I do this is because actually I tend to forget about stuff I don't like, and I only remember stuff I like. So I do this and I take notes of everything just because I want to look back at it and see, oh, okay, maybe this is something I don't like. So, for instance, I can remember from, let's see, I think it was.
This is perfect. This is perfect because it's the exact same thing I do, because I go, I remember, and then it turns out slowly over the next couple of seconds that in fact I do not remember. But I like your positive attitude. You only remember what's good. I wish I had your skill set.
Yeah, my removal system works pretty fine. No, basically, I noticed that some people tend to overdo things. Sometimes it works, and they keep on doing the same kind of puzzle over and over. But there are developers who do that in a very clever way, like, for instance, James Dearden for Technobabylon.
Yeah.
Basically, Technobabylon is a sequence of those who are called broadly escape puzzles. But they are done in such a nice way that you don't really think you are stuck into a single place. Especially in the very beginning of the game, where you switch between the real world and the trance. You basically switch between two rooms, but you are still in the same room, and you learn a lot about the game itself, because an escape room is a great way to teach players how to play your game, basically.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the most satisfactory thing about adventure games, isn't it? When you don't feel you're solving puzzles, you just feel you're progressing the story, because everything that happens is natural, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, it's actually because for instance, in Technobabylon, if you go to the trance and just read the emails, you find out stuff about the main character. She's not so social anymore. She's being stuck more and more into the trance, and so on and so forth. So basically, it's like you dive into her world and solving her problems without even knowing why you're doing so. So yeah, it's exactly what you said.
Character exploration done through gameplay, and that's another thing we've talked about during this season is going away from adventure games, the standard definition of adventure games as being puzzles with some story elements added, to actually being a natural progression of narrative storytelling as interactive narratives. Where the story is in the forefront and there are puzzles in there, but they're not the main focus, so to speak. And I'm saying this in juxtaposition to like games like Discworld, for instance, which were never really about plot. They were more about confounding the player to rather ludicrous extents, I must say. And the plot was sort of secondary. And the way I see adventure games, in the current market, the modern market, it is much more about the storytelling and not so much about, confounding the player or the designer going, "I'm so smart, revel in my cleverness."
Yeah, that's actually a very hard thing to achieve. And there is people like Chris Crawford who is still trying to do that after maybe 30 years. And I think he spent much of his life trying to solve this problem. Chris Crawford is, by the way, the same guy who co-founded or founded the Game Developers Conference, and he left the industry at some stage trying to solve this very problem of the interactive storytelling. There is so much stuff he talks about that I cannot easily sum it up. So look him up on Google or whatever, and
charge.
But basically,
yeah, exactly, it's the same guy. Yeah.
But basically, stuff happened. Then walking simulators were invented. No, I'm just kidding.
Which actually, to me, are very interesting in a way, because I think they are a really nice step towards VR. In a way.
Yeah.
Gareth.
Except you can't walk in VR, god damn it.
That's the thing. I'll just say just one thing, and then I'll shut up because I'm talking too much. One of the things...
Perish the thought.
In the talk, I mentioned something that is a phrase by Greg Kostikian, and he says, "We should design to the medium strength rather than struggling with its limitation." So that's what I don't like much about VR games nowadays. I don't play much VR games anyway, so I may be out of the loop, and just not knowing that someone may have already solved the problem. But when I see the teleport mechanism.
Oh, yes.
Instead of walking, that's something. You're trying to solve a problem that you should not even think about right now, probably. You should actually design a game that exploits all the strengths that the medium has. So the immersive environment, or, I don't know, whatever VR does that people like so much.
Oh,
so, standing in one place.
Yeah.
Now wait,
story of my life.
This is actually a very nice segue. We did an episode with a wonderful gentleman called Alexander Mejia, not the footballer, who
not the footballer.
No,
not the
to
footballer.
our great surprise.
Yes, who is actually working on a narrative-driven VR title, and he solved the problem. Well, at least in his mind, and I would tend to agree, he solved the problem by focusing on something entirely different. We are used to adventure games where you walk around and interact with characters and, steal shit, bring them shit, and all this junk. He went the route of, well, since we can't really walk around in a VR space, what we can actually do is talk to people because all these VR headsets have microphones in them. So what he did was using machine learning, kind of like an extension of the parser, really. He has voice recognition in his game whereby you actually talk to the game and the game responds. And we're not talking the old Starship Titanic thing where you type shit in and the game just goes, I did not understand that. Please rephrase. No, you can talk.
I am a broken robot. That justifies the crap parser.
Yes, exactly.
Are you sure it's just not the designer 24/7 answering questions?
No, he's got some sort of deal with Microsoft to use their machine learning AI thing, and he's got some voice recognition in there, and it is well, taking it from him anyway. It is quite phenomenal. You are able to converse with NPCs, which
I've actually played it, and it's really it is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Did they pass the Turing test?
He said it was close.
I don't know, actually.
To be fair,
no,
Fred doesn't pass the Turing test.
That is true.
I mean,
I only played a short demo, but they actually, like, in addition to kind of, they did a couple of things that were pretty cool. Like when you're pretty much controlling this ship. It's first person, like Wing Commander, basically, and you're controlling this little starship, and the FMV hologram person comes out and is like, hey, this is your command, you have to say, computer, do this.
They're very, very casual, hey, this is your command.
Exactly.
Also, but are you talking to a computer, or is it supposed to be a human?
It's supposed to be you're talking to a human in the next ship who's giving you instructions on how to pilot the craft, but you're giving commands to the computer as well. And there was a neat little thing where I just said, open the door or whatever, and she comes up and she's like, you have to say computer first. And then you're like, oh, okay, computer, do this. And then there's like a bit later on where you're like escaping this exploding spaceship thing, and you have to like guide her because she's flying next to you, and you have to like tell her which doors to go through. So you have to tell her what numbers are on the doors, and then there's one that like just looks like this weird Rorschach test, and it's like, quick, tell me what it looks like. And you're like, it looks like an octopus. And then she's like, what do you mean it looks like a mustache? So it was
machine learning.
It's not a puzzle broken.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Actually, it was a puzzle.
And of course, Microsoft is collecting all that data.
Oh no, we quizzed him on that. There will be no Nazism in his game. We might have to bleep that again.
No. That's not a segue if you haven't got the context.
Oh.
Yeah, while Gareth
Microsoft said it will stay with you. There will be no Nazism.
While Gareth is working out how to convincingly bleep that out, I noticed in the chat that Charlotte, who has now safely fed Jeff Goldblum, had a note on walking simulators versus point and click. So take it away, Charlotte.
Well, I took this as that your follow-up game could be Halifax Stroller.
Lancashire traitors.
Bless you.
What the hell just happened?
I don't know.
I sneezed. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank God no one exploded.
That is the scariest thing I ever heard. Sorry.
I thought I covered the mic, but apparently not.
We were just talking about kind of like narrative games, and how kind of walking simulators are very much like the purest expression of that. And I really love those games. Honestly, if I could get away with it, that's the kind of game that I would make. But
she's coming back for round 2.
What? I was wondering about why I would actually why I'm sort of actually sticking with doing the sort of 2D stuff. And I kind of realized that the thing about walking simulators is that kind of characters are hidden. Like you can do these photorealistic backgrounds, but as soon as you put a humanoid in them, it all falls to pieces. So everything has to be kind of voices off screen and things, which is great. But I actually love the fact that, doing sort of 2D rubbish pixel art like I do means I can actually put characters in, and I can have as many characters as I like, and you can actually see them. And even though and I actually realised I've actually found an actual advantage to doing this type of game over kind of like the walking simulator, even though I'd actually love to do 3D stuff, but I just don't think I could do the same characters. And I think, I'm kind of feeling like we need to bring that. I think that's why one of the advantages, if you are doing these kind of like 2D sort of 2D games like this. This is an advantage that we actually have that we've just kind of completely just not really realized we have.
Preach.
Well, I was going to say, one of the funny things for me is that I tend to work a lot in text. Games like Sun the Skies and Silent Streets or whatever. And it's sort of the same thing in that, one of the advantages of it is that people haven't used it to its full. So, just by, playing around with it, you can do some incredible stuff that kind of still feels incredibly fresh.
It's totally that. I mean, I just think, players don't really. I think they respond more to characters and stories and kind of jokes and stuff far more than anything. The actual technical details of what kind of game it is, honestly, genuinely don't matter. Only to there are certain people it does matter to, but they're not a useful part of the. You just forget about them. Just forget they exist, and that's.
Well, I mean, going back to the thing which we talked about earlier about puzzles. I think one of the interesting things is to kind of go back and kind of look at the classic adventure games, and for the most part, they don't talk about puzzles. It's like, monkeys like laugh until milk comes out of your nose. It's things like Maniac Mansion is all, look at this kind of wonderful kind of cartoon experience. The puzzles were never really a selling point. Basically in anything. I'm not saying why people didn't like playing them for that, but I mean, they weren't, generally it was like, if puzzle was there, it was like kind of like fifth tier. And also we've got puzzles. That's what the game is. But the big push was always, great characters, funny dialogue, awesome settings.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlotte.
No, it was me.
Oh, was it?
Ooh, that's embarrassing. Go ahead, Christopher.
Go ahead, Christopher.
No, I just want to say, I think one of the reasons is because probably, for instance, Maniac Mansion has a specific puzzle which is, ring the doorbell, have Weird Dad leave the room, then switch character, hop into the room and steal everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that puzzle does not look like a puzzle. That's one of the reasons why people don't remember them as being puzzles, because they are not set up like that. It is not like, I don't know, this door is blocked. How can I open this door?
Yeah, and there's also, if I may interject, there's also the comedic dimension to it. If the puzzle itself, even if it's a little bit, even if it's sideways logic, if it in itself is funny and it gives you a funny reward, then I think it's worth bothering with. And I think I think that's what the charm of a lot of adventures. It isn't about the intrinsic logic underneath, which might be sketchy in a lot of cases, but just the experience of going through it and getting a funny animation or a funny quip. That's basically what pushes the player through it.
I mean, I think that LucasArts in particular, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sean, but I think LucasArts in particular did a great job of making the puzzles basically the jokes. Obviously, they weren't all comedy games, but generally you're doing fun things. Yes. Whereas in a lot of other games, you're kind of messing around with like bits of tape and bits of whatever. It's not fun. It's just an obstacle in your way.
It's like a Rube Goldberg machine, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. You do the one thing, and then kind of that unlocks another thing, and then you can kind of see where it's going, and you have this sort of predictive element of you're like, I'm going to enjoy doing that.
Yes,
when I have the pieces. And I always like to sort of split things up between puzzles and problems. I sort of see puzzles being, and again, this isn't a qualitative thing. There can be great puzzles. I'm not trying to say that one is better than the other, but I think that a puzzle is basically what the hell am I meant to do. Whereas a problem is, how do I do this? And I think there's a very different mental process. I think Maniac Mansion, even though it's such an early game, it does have what we describe as puzzles. They are mostly problems. Like the Weird Al thing, like how do you kind of take advantage of the Edisons being around the house? Whereas conversely, Dare the Tentacle is puzzle.
I love how you went Weird Al instead of Weird Ed.
Weird Al, sorry. Weird Ed. He may also do pokers, I don't know.
I do the thing that Richard said there, which was, and also there's puzzles, is definitely what I should probably put on my Steam page. I've been genuinely quite shocked at how many people have actually commented on the puzzles and like taken them seriously as things that, like a part of the game. Whereas for me, it's pretty much just like, if I put a puzzle in because I think it's funny and that's it. I don't really care. I don't want to particularly challenge people. If I could pretty much get rid of puzzles altogether, I probably would, but I don't know.
Work for Telltale.
I'm noting that.
So I've been working on this other little before, other than the musical. I got this other little mini episode that's going out for Yorkshire Gubbins, and I've tried this approach where I just try to almost eliminate puzzles altogether, and I actually don't like it. It turns out there is a floor on how many puzzles you can actually get rid of before it just starts to just feel like what you're doing. You know, it's a bit boring. It's nice to give people.
It turns into a PowerPoint slideshow then.
Yeah, it kind of does, and I'm a bit worried. I might go back and just make it really, really evil, just putting a load of puzzles because.
Then it's going to turn into.
How it kind of really taken this, so you kind of got the bit where it's like a non-interactive puzzle, but then every 30 seconds, just like some old logic puzzle pops up. And so now, Towers of Hanoi. We know you don't want to do it, but you're going to.
Well, that's what Tex Murphy did in Pandora Directive. I have a question because what we've been talking about now is the evolution of puzzle design, which I guess if we have to bite the bullet is kind of the meat and bones of adventure games. Although we would like to say that they are it's the story first. I would like to hear from Laine about this because I remember. I remember talking to Scott Murphy back in ye olden days when he still took my calls. That when they were designing Space Quests 1 and 2, they were basically doing it seat of their pants. I mean, he has apologized profusely for the glass shard puzzle in Space Quest 1, which is one of those infamous Walking Dead scenarios. Because he was basically just designing that, okay, we have a new screen. What should we come up with? Let's code it in and be done by lunch kind of thing. So, Laine, how do you see the evolution of puzzle design and the theory of puzzle design from those early, we have no idea what the fuck we're doing days to the current, perhaps even over-analyzing of puzzle design and problem design?
Yeah. Thanks for asking this. I was kind of. I was.
The talking stick is yours.
Oh,
who is sneezing now? while you are answering that message.
Sorry, did a clown come into this call?
Yes, I've been here this entire time.
I was thinking about this as you folks were talking about the puzzle problem distinction. I was thinking, Sierra games were very high on problems. I think that a lot of what was going on in those games is there really was no theory about a game design practice, right? Amongst a lot of the designers. More so, there was a need to insert problems to throttle access to different game spaces. So it was a way of kind of protracting the narrative experience by putting a problem in front of you, right? So that you didn't just experience all of the game at once. And I think the designers who had more literary backgrounds fell prey to that less. I think you see it less in like the work of Laurie and Corey Cole. You see it less in Christy Marks. You see it less in Jane's work to some extent. That the relationship between the puzzle design and what is going on in the narrative feels far more organic, I would say, than let's say a great number of Space Quest or later King's Quest games and things like that. So it was really about trying to invent a reason for contraction of play. Rather than trying to develop something that I think built the story forward. Are you guys? No one. I can't hear anything.
No, we're listening.
We're here and listening.
You're fucking wrapped in what I'm saying. Okay.
Yes, that is.
We're just being polite to that.
And I think that as adventure games have become. In the 1980s, they were one of the, it's a bad comparison, but they were kind of like a version of a AAA genre for computer gaming, right? And so actually they had to be in the same way that like every single goddamn Assassin's Creed game that comes out is super predictable and really just kind of an execution of the same set of principles. There wasn't a lot of experimentation, I would say, that was going on in these games. I think that as adventure games have kind of become in some ways more of a niche component of the game industry, that's what's allowed for an interesting set of expansion, for more attentiveness, I think, to the relationship between puzzle and story. I think that's how I would characterize it or think about it.
Well, thank you. That was like I said, or like you said, actually, I was fucking enraptured by that answer.
Absolutely. I want to briefly bring up something I tried a couple of times, and then I got really, really bitter that I wasn't able to interrupt.
Play the horn, Francisco.
Which usually never happens. Yeah, no, over in this chat that we have in this
Your timing is impeccable, sir.
Yeah, you took your sweet time on that.
I didn't have it queued up, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Over in this chat that we have in this lovely client.
What was that?
Christopher wrote a phenomenal sentence which I want to be carved into my skin, basically, which is, and I quote, create problems, not puzzles. If I could read it correct.
Well, it's actually Richard's, in a way.
I create problems for myself daily. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, but we're talking about games, dude.
Oh, sorry.
Francisco's just written in the chat that he has something to add to Laine's example, which is very good because I was going to ask him a question anyway. So, Francisco, would you like to add to what Laine said? Not to take anything away from what Christopher said, because I think, yes, we may well make that the title of the episode, but Francisco.
Thank you. Yeah, breath.
That is fine.
We are now Klingons, everyone. I will be Tor-Els of the House of Sheet.
I'm sorry, I have no idea where that came from.
Biology lacks honor.
It's fine. No, I thought Laine's point was really interesting about the whole idea of the specific designers and their more literary backgrounds kind of being not really in conflict, but being separate from like the puzzle design thing. And that points to like one of the most infamous examples of adventure game puzzles, which is the cat hair mustache puzzle, because that puzzle, it was revealed, was invented by like one of the game's producers or something. You know, Jane Jensen didn't have any input on that, and she, like, her games are very much about the story and very much about the obstacles and stuff. And when she's involved, like, they're really good. Like Le Serpent Rouge in that same game is a great puzzle, but the cat hair mustache is not. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I was. I'll throw in something to kind of add or expand on that. One of the things I've been looking at is studying the AGI and SCI game engines and the ways that those engines broke apart space. And I think that what that led to do is that some of the designers who also tended to be the programmers, or in games where programmers had like design input in some senses, you find, I think, a greater reliance on doing tricks with the spatial nature of the engine and turning those into puzzles. So all of those like excruciating experiences of like walk up and down this insufferable flight of stairs or across this like weird like those navigation puzzles, right? I think of Rosella going up the whale's tongue as one of these, right? Those are the kinds of puzzles that I think would make no sense except to someone who really understands how the back end of the code works. And there's this, the spatial puzzles for me are, I think, indicative of the kind of programming logic that was built into the game engine. And I would say kind of derived out of programmer and designer experience with that, which is why they seem so, I think, like oddly fitting, I think, or they fit oddly, right, into these narrative experiences. But anyway, go on. Sorry.
No, it's a fascinating point, because I think, let's be honest, the reason that we're here and we're talking about adventure games means that to a certain extent, everyone in this room has a degree of nostalgia for the past, whether it's that we only remember the good stuff, as Christopher was saying earlier, or whether it's simply because, you know, we played them as kids. We're all of a certain age. You know, we've all kind of got that kind of background in adventure games, but it's also very important, I think, to remember that not everything about them was brilliant. Katie, you've brought up an excellent example in chat of a really dumb puzzle. So I kind of wanted, could you talk a little bit about that particular puzzle, and then maybe say something about how nostalgia plays into the way that you try and sell the games that you're creating?
Sure. So yeah, the example I was giving of the peak terrible puzzle for me was in King's Quest V, when you have to throw this moldy cheese into a machine to charge up a magic wand, which makes no sense at all.
Does it make more or less sense than chucking a pie at a Yeti? I mean, if we have to sort of scale them.
Because the pie, at least throwing a pie in a face, that's a thing. Like, using cheese to charge anything is not a thing, much less a magic wand.
Okay, yeah, you got me there.
I think it's the fact that cheese, you have to get caught and go into a cell and get the cheese, but before you're rescued from the cell, because you can't ever go back there, because you'll be stuck there forever if you do. So everything around that cheese is annoying, basically.
That game is an absolute puzzle mess. Like, that game is a disaster, kind of from top to bottom.
Some people love that one so much for the King's series, and I think it has a special place, but there are so many things wrong with it, I think.
But
it is so just tonally all over the place.
But isn't it also, I mean, King's Quest V was a trailblazer in many ways with regards to technology and presentation, but I guess at that time Sierra was still kind of feeling their way around what has now become known as design philosophies, as in they didn't really have one at the time?
I mean, I think, the reason that game was successful was because it was tied to a number of graphical and audio enhancements that were going on in the PC industry at that time. Like, bar none, it was showboating on that. Mm-hmm. I think that individual designers had senses of design philosophy, and here I would go back again to that list of the designers who had more literary training. I think that King's Quest V is a good example of the smorgasbord Roberta Williams style of, like, there will be many things in this one land that don't have any underlying relationship, and the puzzles there are primarily to create conflicts that don't seem to have a lot of narrative relationship to one another. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a lot about that game that doesn't make any sense.
And then, like, they don't rescue your family, but Graham's just kind of like, hey, I'm having a good time with my owl friend here.
He is absolutely not having a good time with his owl friend. Absolutely
and
not.
No one else is. Oh, sorry. Sorry for interrupting. I would also like to hear on the subject of what is design philosophies. That's the word I was looking for. I just mentioned it a few minutes ago, and now I've forgotten it again. On design philosophies, because taking cues from ye olden days and then wrapping them into what I'm sorry to say this, Liviu, but it is more or less like you've also admitted a classic adventure game through and through. How have you taken the mistakes of the past and adapted them to a game that I don't want this to come off negative because I love your fucking game, man.
It's cool.
I honestly love the shit out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't. So Liviu, you wouldn't say that Trolls is being too negative, and by being here, you're looking for love in several wrong places.
God.
Just drop it.
That was perfect timing.
Thank you very much. I will now mute my microphone.
Yes, design philosophy. Laine, I see your hand, and we will get back. I want to, Liviu, taking inspiration from the early games and adapting them to not have puzzles that suck in the modern age, even though you're making what is ostensibly a classic point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to return to that classically inspired and the whole mentioning of LucasArts thing, I think it comes off badly because people maybe draw the conclusion that you're somehow comparing yourself to LucasArts, which is just impossible. In our case, at least, when we did the Kickstarter, we just basically used that for shorthand because people understand a lot easier when you give them a comparison. You know, you have to you do the whole X meets Y in Z song and dance so that people more easily have something to anchor themselves into. You know, mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just the thing is that I tend not to, when I designed this game, which was the very first game that I designed and the very first adventure game that I designed, obviously. I just didn't think, for example, of puzzles as puzzles per se. I really made this conscious effort of thinking about the plot and what the player was going to be up to at the same time, and not letting them divorce themselves from one another for too long. Ideally, not at all, because I just personally dislike tremendously when I can tell that I am being faced with a puzzle, with something that still a lot of adventure games do, and it really takes me out of it, and I think it has this effect on most players. When something just doesn't gel, when the puzzle just doesn't gel with the story, when it's just an arbitrary roadblock, when it's just a logical puzzle that's just being thrown at you. So that was first and foremost the thing that we wanted to do. Now, I hope we succeeded. I really, really hope we succeeded, but even though I've only read these I've only read these things afterwards, and I've only learned them afterwards, I think I somehow intuited the fact that a puzzle really needs to say something either about the character or the story or the overall theme of the game, and I've tried to do that to the best of my abilities. And later finding out that actually this is the thing that you do, and I was like, hey, I think I'm going in the right direction here.
Yeah, and on that note, that's a very positive way to end your statement, Liviu, because over in the chat, Charlotte remarked that you kind of all seem to be apologizing, for what you're doing.
Oh, sorry. Laine had a...
Trolls, for the love of God, we are backseat designers.
Oh,
we are meant to solve shit.
You all seem to be apologizing. Sorry. It's catching.
No, I was just going to say Laine had her hand up in regards to what we're saying.
No, I definitely didn't. I think I was just chastising you to stop making Leisure Suit Larry jokes. So please, someone else take the floor.
Entirely called for.
Then I will apologize yet again.
No, if that came across that way, it really isn't that way. I mean, we were super humbled. We're a team of nobodies from middle of nowhere Transylvania, and we managed to get 2,000 people interested enough in our game to make it a reality. So that means that there's enough interest there for. I mean, people pretty much know what the game is. People have played the game. People are excited about characters. The characters they're particularly excited about one particular character, which I'm very happy about. So we're definitely very confident about what we're doing. It's a big question mark whether this will do well commercially or not, but we're really trying not to think about that, and that hasn't really come up during the 2 years that we've been making this game. And I think that's absolutely the way to go, because if you started on a path and you need to stay on that path and really deliver on your vision, and I think it's going to be... I have this feeling that it's going to go well for us, because I don't think that people... no, let me rephrase that. I think people can tell when it's actually a passion-driven project, and the ungodly amount of work that we've put into this game. I think I hope and think that people will be not impressed, because that sounds weird. I just hope that people will vibe with it.
Well, I was impressed. If I've given the wrong impression, then I hate to say I'm sorry now, but yeah, it is.
I mean, you're one of my best friends, and to this day you give the wrong impression.
Oh yes, I constantly do. Yes.
Liviu, I think you're selling yourself short, because you're like, we're just a bunch of nobodies from Transylvania. No,
That's what they said about Count Dracula.
Exactly.
I think it's the whole first game imposter syndrome. And,
but you should be like, we're a bunch of game developers from Transylvania.
And I see Charlotte in the chat asking if Transylvania is actually a real place. And that was one of the most fun things that happened to us when we did the Kickstarter. That was the first time that there was something of a spotlight put on us publicly, and that was the most fun question that we were always being asked, whether Transylvania is actually a place. Yes.
No, I'm super interested as a project. Like the big thing for my game is actually basing it on like the local area where I live, and I keep saying that where you live is exotic and interesting to 99% of the world. But that is like doubly true if you're from Transylvania. I mean,
Absolutely.
But this just proves that. It's like, oh yeah, it's a real place, and we're actually going to use the fact that we live here, and we're going to make a game, and it's going to be our game, it's our thing. And the fact that you just had like 2,000 people be totally into it and give you money before you've made anything is flipping awesome. And I think this is what we need to see. This is the bit.
Yeah, and it was a very interesting
new thing.
Sorry to interrupt you. It was a very interesting thing because when we started making this game, I really didn't have a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. I think when you make your first game, you just smash together things that you like. So in my case, it was just my love for LucasArts type adventure games and cats and Lovecraft. And then I thought, how do I use the write about what you know thing? And we came to the conclusion that visually it would be interesting for all the buildings in the game to be actual buildings from our hometown or from around our hometown. So basically, you're playing the entire game visually in Transylvania, even if only part of it is in Transylvania. So I don't know. It was just a very, very fun experiment for us. And it's been a real challenge and lots of fun for us. It's been absolutely a blast, and so
well, it is a write what you know kind of situation. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Going back to games like
very quickly about the local thing. It's often quite funny when you sort of dig a bit into kind of where stuff comes from. Just as an example, which I know because I live in York. It's a walled city, obviously in England. And if you play Broken Sword 5, there's a section set in London, but there's a big thing on one of the walls advertising bile beans, and that's actually an advert from York. It's on one of the roads kind of leading out. This is a giant, be healthy, eat bile beans. And so it was just really funny to see it, transplanted to London. And I know exactly what that is, and I know which road you drive home.
And that's because Revolution is based in York.
Before we move on too much, a long time ago, buried into the chat, Katie said that she had something to add to the discussion that was started about the. I can't even remember what it was, but Katie, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Shit! Yeah, I'm sorry, wrong hand. That was
when you were talking about kind of like updating old interfaces, into new games since we've worked a lot with like remakes and. Similarly to a lot of people, the like sort of inspired by the older stuff. So now I'm trying to remember what everyone else said about that, so that I don't say the same thing. Just get repetitive. I think just agreeing with that idea of create problems, not puzzles, which I think back to that creating a design philosophy, and having something that supports your story and supports your design, and to take modernizing the things that we loved about older adventure games, or the pitfalls of like puzzles just to have them, which actually when we made Cognition in the first episode, there are a few of those, and they don't jump out I think as being like story breaking, but people were like, this puzzle was kind of boring, and it's like, yeah, we sort of did just add that because we felt like, oh, there should probably be a thing here. So we sort of avoided that as we went along.
Yeah, that's a common let's say for instance a game like Life is Strange Before the Storm, which I played, and to me was just a very, very long cutscene interspersed with one or two dialogue options, maybe an interactive bit where you picked up some shit and then the cutscene just kept going. So I remember one of the criticisms being leveled at The Longest Journey back in the day was that, these guys just want to make a movie and they just chuck puzzles in between. And now, of course, we've got things like Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is basically just a movie with one or two dialogue puzzles chucked in. So that whole thing of maybe going overboard with telling a story and forgetting to put not puzzles but interactive bits in it, because we are dealing with interactive narratives. Does that? I'm speaking to the developers particularly. Do you sometimes find yourself on that odd crossroad where you're going, I have a story beat here that is just fantastic, or I have an entire story that's just fantastic. I can't work out how to make this interactive.
You just don't. You just replace it with an animated cutscene. That's my philosophy.
That's the real problem with any kind of game whatsoever, probably, in a way, because the big problem of games, if we have to point out a problem, is really that you can't seem to have storytelling and interaction at the same time. You either have story that alternates with gameplay, or just the same thing over and over, or too much gameplay and too little story, and it's really a mess. And it's why some people say, okay, the games are becoming more or less all the same. Oh yeah, I did see this. Somebody mentioned before, I was playing God of War, and to me was just someone... yeah, it was like I did see someone shouting for 2 hours. Was it you trolls?
Shouting for 2 hours? Yeah, that's pretty much all of my streams. I'm struggling to remember a specific game.
No, someone was saying about I did see a let's play of the last God of War, and basically all I noticed that it was a huge man who was shouting "Son, son!" stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
Charlotte and Katie, do you have something to add to that? Because there's some really interesting stuff going on in the chat here.
Well, what were we talking about now?
about design philosophy. And about making sure that the puzzles kind of fit into the story arc.
Oh yeah, I've done myself a bit of a disservice here by sort of implying that I don't really care about the puzzles, and I realised I actually do have a thing for this. There is actually an actual philosophy that I go to when I actually design the puzzles, and that's because by linking it entirely to the character's own little story arc. So generally speaking, the plots of my games are absolute absurd rubbish, right? But I do try and make sure that the actual protagonist character has a little complete full little story that they go on, and that they grow and change in some way. So the puzzles tend to be around helping they all come and emerge from that character's journey. And also, if I can, I have them try and express the character's so the way that they solve a particular situation or a problem in the game is an indicator of their personality. So like one of the main characters in Yorkshire, Gubbins, Steggy, she's just such a she's an awful person, really, and I just like that. The way that she solves puzzles says a lot about who she is, and I think that's the thing that drives.
I actually completely agree with you. One of the things which really kind of turns me a lot of adventures is if the character's doing something out of character, just for the sake of doing things, and basically they become a sociopath rather than an adventurer. Mystery of the Druids is kind of my usual go-to example. You have to basically poison a bum with pure ethanol to steal money from him to make a phone call, and you're a Scotland Yard detective. And this sort of doesn't work for me. Whereas conversely, if you were playing, say Sam and Max or something, then fine. That's exactly how they would maybe go about it.
But they were lovable. That's why it worked.
You say lovable psychopaths.
Yeah, but also the tone of the game.
The example I was is when Tim Schafer was promoting Full Throttle. And I should put out, by the way, that Full Throttle was particularly popular back in the day because of the puzzle being so too simple and being people to treat it like an interactive movie. And I think it's only kind of with its re-release, it's really getting the credits deserved. However, he had this fantastic example basically about how Ben the biker would solve a problem versus Bernard from Dare the Tentacle. If both of them had a sandwich. I'll paraphrase because it's quite long, but basically it's that Bernard would
do your favorite puzzle, right?
He would do my favorite puzzle. He would sort of take the sandwich, he would take the stick out, he would sort of stick the bread underneath, he would poke the thing through the key and then pull it back and take the key. Ben would eat the sandwich and kick the door down. And I think that the very first puzzle in Full Throttle absolutely defines that. He needs to get his keys back from the bartender causes problems. Any other character would be running around trying to find some blackmail or trying to steal them. Ben grabs him by the nose ring and slams him to the bar. And give me the keys, I'm bigger than you.
I found this is actually a bit of a challenge for me as sort of a writer of these games. That Steggy as a protagonist is actually really good because she's such an awful person. She loves stealing things, She doesn't like helping people, and anything anyone wants her to do, she's like, oh God, no, don't, oh flipping heck, And I find that very inspiring, and sort of figuring out how Steggy would solve that problem is she usually has to solve problems in a fairly entertaining way, whereas in this other thing that I've got going on at the moment, it's like the main protagonist is really boring and wouldn't do anything like that, and I'm finding it so much harder to find interesting puzzles that emerge from that. If your character's actually boring and wants to do the right thing, then it actually becomes so difficult.
I mean, one of the problems with most adventure game puzzles is that 90% of them can be solved with £10 and a trip to B&Q. It's
with a chainsaw and just taking it to your computer.
Get a hammer. You can use it to bash down the door. You can use it to threaten somebody who won't give you the thing. You can use it to break your chains. Basically, it's why one of the standard problems for adventure game artists is they'll start drawing tools in the background that have to be sort of told by the designer, no, we can't have a hacksaw in the game. You have a hacksaw, this game is over.
That's actually an interesting point. The role of or the personality of the protagonist, more so than anything, is that as a player, you're supposed to sort of put yourselves in the shoes of the protagonist. And for many people playing a game like, I'm going to bring this up again, Deponia, where the main character is an absolute asshole.
Well, Fun for 3D is what I kind of like, because a lot of that game is just basically being an absolute shit to people,
right?
And it's not funny enough to get away with that.
Yeah, exactly. And what strikes me as Charlotte is describing her main character is that she has managed to somehow make the first unlikable protagonist who is actually endearing to play. And I'm clapping my little hands over here.
I think it's because she's she hasn't got a job, and her mum wants her to move out, and it's just like it's grounded in a sort of reality, and you can sort of see her as like a very normal, like kind of person. She's sort of an every woman, every man kind of thing. Like, I think, and a bit of a blank slate, but I think she is kind of sympathetic. Like, that all the horrible stuff she comes from the fact that she really doesn't really have a choice. Like, she doesn't have money, she doesn't have these kind of opportunities. She's coming from a very kind of sort of poor background kind of thing. And I don't really make a big deal of that. It's just kind of, it's just like from Steggy's point of view, that's just how life is. And I just kind of, I don't know, maybe it's the way that other people react to her kind of makes her sympathetic. Like, people always automatically empathize with the underdog, so to speak. And I kind of always make sure that that's the situation that Steggy's always in. No matter where she is, she's just sort of instantly put on her back foot and the world's against her. And I think that just sort of, that kind of, people automatically then sort of just empathize with her. And I kind of think that's the way it go, and that means that life is horrible for Steggy, because just everywhere she goes, just the world, and everyone's awful.
I think we can. We've been going for well over an hour now, nearly an hour and a half, and I don't know about you guys. I think we could probably talk for another and a half. I'm not entirely sure whether
I don't know about you lot now.
Yeah, I don't know about you.
I would love to. Yeah.
But I think it would be a really good point to end on, to echo what Christopher said in the chat, which is that Charlotte's done a really good job of taking the character and making sure that the character develops on time. So I think that's a good place to end. Another good place to end as well, to sort of say that we enjoy the stuff that you do. It's the reason that we've invited all of you along. You've all been great to talk to over the past sort of however long we've known you for. And the games that you make are great. And so everybody that's listening, please buy the games. And the people who are here in the chat, please keep making and doing the stuff that you do.
It's been a while since we heard from you.
And on that,
sentiment must be punished.
Charlotte, if people want to find out about the stuff that you're doing, where would be the best place for them to go?
Oh God! Just sort of go out into your street, open up a sewer drain, climb down, and get your torch ready.
Wow, this got dark pretty quickly.
No, I don't know. If you go to www.nasa.org, something, I don't know. No, hang on. What? This is really bad. This is like my chance to actually tell people. Oh God. I don't know.
There's a website called Twitter.
There's a website called
my Twitter, Charlotte Gore. Twitter. That's where I basically do everything. I don't have a business Twitter, and I don't do any. That's it. Sorry, God, I right fist to that.
You did very well.
That is perfect English marketing. I love it. All of the details of everything will be going up on the backseatdesigners.com website, so you'll be able to find everybody from here. But Francisco, where would be the best place to go and find you? Please don't say a storm drain.
I actually have to do an animation of a close-up of a storm drain now, so that's appropriate. You can go on Twitter and check me out at Grundislav Games. You can, if you're really interested in my current project, you can go to lamplightcity.com, where you can find all sorts of links and wish listed on Steam if you are so inclined.
That's American marketing. It's just too polished. I don't like it. Katie, where can people find your stuff?
Phoenix Online Studios. We're on Twitter at PO Studios or Facebook at Phoenix Online Studios. And if you're interested in my random tweetings and whatnot, I'm Katie Hal 16. I'll probably be yelling about politics.
Yes, do follow Katie. My personal politics seem reasonably aligned, so I enjoy it a lot, and I enjoy your Facebook feed as well. Laine, where can people find you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter, where my handle is Sierra_offline. Also, LaineNooney.com is my personal site, and you're welcome to get on me at Twitter, ask me anything you want, except when the book will be done.
Crossing that off my list.
It's good fun, isn't it? Excellent. Liviu, where can people find your stuff?
www.gibbusgame.com, and we are also on Twitter on let me look it up, twitter.com/gibbusgame. So we are at gibbusgame, and there's also going to be a Steam page for the game coming up soon, so do wish list it if and when it shows up, and if and when you are interested in the game. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for having me on. This was super fun.
No, I've worked a lot, and I've spoken far more than I normally would on an episode as well. Christopher, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter on Lost Train Dude. I'm Lost Train Dude on Twitter, and you can find, if you're interested in the On Point on Click, which is my, let's say, column about adventure games, you can just go to Twitter and click on the link that's there in the description.
Super.
And thank you for having me.
Richard. No. Well, the pleasure's been ours. It's been a really good discussion. And finally, Richard, where can people find you?
People can find me at richardcobbett.com or at Richard Cobbett on Twitter. I'm not very imaginative that way. If you find the MEP who's always talking about Brexit, that's not me.
Don't mention the Toblerone.
Don't mention the Toblerone. I think I got away with it. Right. I need to lie down. I don't normally talk this much, and I don't normally get that sincere about liking people's stuff, but I do like their stuff. Everything that has just been said.
Well, we like your stuff too, if you know what I mean.
Thanks, Francisco.
That needs the honk noise, I think.
I was hoping I would get a Fiat Sopa from that. But
well, that's the thing. I've been so busy concentrating trying to actually say stuff. I haven't been using the soundboard quite as much.
So you have a bike that needs to be fixed, and you haven't had time to look at it.
Right.
This is super professional moderating, I just want to say.
yes.
Well, homoerotic over and undertones aside, you can find this show and everything else at backseatdesigners.com. We are at BS Designers on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Search Backseat Designers. To be honest, if you're still listening to this at the end of all of everything that's happened, you know all of that already. And yes, on backseatdesigners.com, there'll be a blog post for this show where you can find out about all the different people and all the amazing stuff they're doing. So all that's left to say is say goodbye, Fred. And say goodbye, trolls.
How to pay here for?
And it's goodbye from me, and we will see you in season 6, I'm sure, at some point this decade.
Oh, professionalism.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
No more for today. Okay.
No more for today.
Well, I think that went pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, we're really fortunate to know this many smart and interesting people.
It really ups the class of the show, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I'm off for a slash.
Really? You're going for a... We're right in the middle of the street. You do realize that.
Yeah, I'll just go behind this bin. You lads keep watch.
Wait, is he seriously?
I think he is.
No, look, guys, I can't go when you're looking.
Well, so much for class.
I mean, seriously, this is what I'm talking about. We can't go 2 minutes without something like this shit.
Well, you're one to talk.
What was that supposed to mean?
Need I remind you? Season 2? Sound Design Part 2?
Oh, I thought we agreed we'd never bring that up.
Well, I wasn't the one
so
who got
hot
ass
yourself,
over face
if I
drunk and
recall.
started yelling
And
in a live transmission.
I swear, if it wasn't for the fact
Besides,
that
you
we
were the one who...
Guys. What's going on here?
It's over.
I know, I had a piss. Now I'm back.
No, he means this. This whole thing. It's undone.
What? Oh shit, sorry, I could have sworn I zipped up.
No, goddammit, everything. It's been hanging in the air for a while.
What, in there? At the round table? I did feel a bit of a breeze, down there. I thought it was just the aircon.
Look, it's just gotten too ugly. We really can't stand it anymore.
Oh, come on. It's just a cock. We all have one. I mean, it's not gonna win any prizes for beauty, but...
Wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you...
What? Oh, we weren't talking about my penis?
Your...
Penis.
Penis.
Look, this is what I'm talking about, you guys. I am done with this shit. You guys have a nice life, alright?
Well, that's just great, isn't it? What do we do now?
Okay.
Oh, just leave me standing here, is that it? Fine, I'll fucking go off and do... something else. Fuck if I know. Maybe I'll take up that pottery lesson. Or have a singing career. I don't know. Maybe get a ferret. Whatever. I don't need those guys. I need a ferret in my life. Yeah, ferrets don't complain. And they buy their own damn beer and they don't yell at me when I sing. Ferrets loves...
A few weeks later.
Yes, you're so cute. Yes, you are. Who's a good kitty? Who's Dynami? You're so good. Oh, yes, you're good.
No? Oh, what? Oh, kitty, I'm just gonna go get the door. No, kitty, no. We've talked about this. No claws in the thighs. Just ow. Oh, you little. Okay. I'm just gonna go get the door. Okay.
Hello.
Who the hell are you?
I rent this room.
You do what in the what now?
I live here.
That's great. Say, you remind me of someone.
Someone?
Yeah, that old creepy guy from Gareth's soundboard.
Yes. No, I am real.
Look, I don't know what your game is, but I think you should leave, man.
I don't think so that you know that.
What the fuck?
Suck it.
Oh!
Very good. Don't say to your mother you have seen this.
La cucaracha, la cucaracha. What the? I'm not expecting anyone.
Emergency!
Huh?
Is this your bike?
Well, that doesn't look like my bike, no.
He is ready.
What do you mean, ready?
No problems.
Listen, I already have a bike, and I'm not interested in buying another one.
You fuck with everybody.
I really think you should leave.
Look at yourself.
Oh, shit!
Finished.
Wow. Good argument. Maybe vaccines do cause. Ooh, that'll be the final proofs of the book.
Hello.
Hi, you from Manchester University Press?
Yes, I'm a good doctor.
Okay. You got the proofs for me?
No.
Oh, for God's sake, why are you wasting my time then? Listen here, fucknuts. You go back to Manchester, you go and get the proofs, you bring them back here so that I can approve them, and then by August you'll be able to get your own copy of Vaccinating Britain from Manchester University Press for just £25 in hardback, or for free, thanks to the generous funding of the Wellcome Trust through their website as an e-book. Okay? Back to Manchester, get me my proofs.
No. You go.
Okay, maybe the pitch was a bit full on. Alright.
Bye-bye, Daddy. Don't do it. No, don't do it. No, don't do it. No. He is ready. Very good. A nice lollipop. Yes.
Bonsoir, madame.
What?
I know who you are, madame.
That's not cool.
You used to be
No.
the
No.
mademoiselle.
No.
Girl in the tower.
No. Very well. Is this... Look at yourself. Very good. No. Me too?
Smoke weed every day.
Yes.
Smoke weed every day.
Yes.
Smoke weed every day.
420. What? Hello.
Surprise, surprise.
How are you?
Real old.
Oh.
Old and fragile. The murders. Nothing to say?
Yes.
Talk.
No problems.
A mess, isn't it?
Yeah, very bad.
And smelly.
Yes, very bad.
Oh, hell.
Woman. How to pay here for?
That's an interesting thought.
Yes.
I do not want to waste money there.
No money?
Right. Special delivery.
What?
This device attaches to an object, such as a car.
No.
Today you will either die or your life will change forever.
No, don't do it.
That doesn't work that way.
No, don't do it.
That's not the way it works.
No.
You've been watching too many old horror movies.
No.
Keep your head down.
No. Sucker.
No more for today.